there, my name is Kelly Dale and I'm owner of Off the Beaten Path in Forest City, North Carolina. My favorite year is upon us, and so comes festive jewelry for the fall holiday season. For today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a really cute pair of pumpkin earrings where we're actually going to make the little stitched part for the top of the earring. Now, to do the earrings, you need to use a size 11 Delica in a green color. It can be any color of green, but for the earring that I made, I used a silver line emerald Delica. Now, you'll also need two 4mm bicones, and I used an emerald bicone. It goes here at the very, very top. I used it to match the color of Delica that I used. You're also going to need two 12mm transparent round orange beads, two head pins, and a pair of ear hooks. Now, to actually stitch the top, what I'm going to be using is a needle and a 4-pound fire line. The reason you don't want to go above a 6-pound when you stitch these, because you're going to have so much thread work through there, it'll be hard to get back. So I used the 4-pound. But to do the video today, what I'm going to be using is, instead of 11s, I'm going to be using size 8s. And instead of using, and you're going to need some size 15 seed beads too. I forgot about that. But you're only going to need 6 per pumpkin that you do. So you'll just need just a tiny, tiny little few. So again, I'm going to be using the size 8 seed beads in place of the 11s. And I'm going to be using a size 11 seed bead in place of the 15s so that you can see the beads easier and better. I will warn you, this is not a hard pattern, but there is just a little tiny piece that you're trying to hold on to, and it's going to seem a little bit harder once you actually start using the 11s and the 15s. So be sure and give it a try. If you have a hard time with the video, we do have this pattern available on our Etsy store, which the address is located right here at the bottom of your screen. And you can go there and buy the PDF for this pattern so that you'll actually have written directions in front of you. So be sure and get your materials together, and then we're going to get started. So to start, what you'll want to do is thread your needle onto a 1-yard piece of fire line. And 1 yard should do both of your top pieces. Now, this earring is made in 3 parts. The very first part we're going to be doing is a ladder stitch. Then we're going to transition to a herringbone stitch. And then thirdly, we're going to be doing some embellishment here at the top. So again, I've got my needle onto a yard of fire line. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up 2 size 11 seed beads. I'm going to let them fall, and I'm going to bring them down, and I'm going to leave myself just about a 2 to 3 inch tail. And I'm going to come back up through the first bead of those 2 that I threaded on. And I'm going to pull. And you will want these 2 beads to sit side by side just like this. I'm going to try and zoom in just a little bit more for you. Okay, so I have my first bead and my second bead, so I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to come down through the second bead. I'm going to pick up 1 bead. I'm going to come down through the same bead that I'm coming out of to make a circle. My new bead sits right next to my old bead now. I'm going to take the needle and come right up through the new bead that I just added. Pick up another size 11. Take the needle and I'm going to come up through the same bead I'm coming out of to make the circle. And then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come down through the bead that I just added. So far I have 4 beads. pick up one bead. I'm going to come down through the bead that I'm coming out of to make my circle. And then I'm going to come up through the bead I just added. And lastly, pick up one. I'm going to come up through this same bead I'm coming out of to make a circle. And then I'm going to come down through the bead that I just added. So now I have a row of 6 beads, and you can maybe see them a little better from here from the top, but I have my 6 beads, and now they need to form a circle. So I'm going to take, and I want to attach the last bead that I just threaded on to the very first bead that I threaded on. So I'm going to take the needle, and I'm going to come up through the very first bead that I threaded on. And you see it's going to pull them closer together. Now I'm going to come down through the last bead. And at this point, if you want to, you can go ahead and tie the tail and the working thread together in a couple of knots. I always just leave my tails until the very end. They normally don't bother me. But one of my little customers, Helen, I cannot stand to have a tail anywhere in her piece. Drives her crazy. So I always have to make sure I figure out a way she can go ahead and cut that off. So if you want to, you can go ahead and cut that off. Now, I'm going to take my working thread, and I'm going to come up through the very first bead that I threaded on in the circle of 6. So that now I actually have a circle of 6. Now, you're going to start to do herringbone stitch. And what we want to do is pick up 2 size 11 seed beads. I'm coming out of this bead, so I'm going to come down through the bead right next to it. And I'm going to turn it sideways so you can see it a little better. I'm going to come right down through this bead so that my beads will sit kind of diagonal to each other here. And then I'm going to come up through the next bead in my circle. Pick up 2 size 11 seed beads. Come down through the very next bead in my circle. And then up through the next bead. And the last 2 beads for this row, pick up 2. I'm going to come down through the last bead here of my circle. And then when I come to this very first bead here again, I'm going to come up through the bead here on the base. And then I'm going to come through the first bead that I threaded on in this row. And that's called stepping up. Okay, so now you have your base row of 6. And then you have 6 other beads that you've added now in sets of 2. So we're going to do another row of herringbone stitch, but we're going to do an increase row now. So we're going to pick up 2 size 11 seed beads, and I'm going to flip it around here so you can see it better. I'm going to come through the very next bead on this row. Just come through the one bead. Don't worry about the bottom row. And so when I pull, my 2 new beads stack right on top of the 2 old beads. Now, we have to put an increase in here. So I'm going to pick up 1 size 11 seed bead, and I'm going to come right up through the very next bead on this row, which is going to be, if I can get it, that bead right there. So now that bead is going to sit a little wonky, but that's what you want, so don't worry about it. Don't try and make it perfect. Going back to herringbone stitch, so I'm going to pick up 2 11s, come down through the very next bead, just the one on this row. Don't worry about the bottom row. So now I have another stack. I'm ready to do another increase, so I'm going to pick up 1 size 11, and I'm going to come right up through the very next bead of the stack. And then I'm going to pick up 2 11s, come down through the last bead here of this row. And now, when I do my increase, I'm going to pick up the bead and I'm going to come up through the last bead of the row, which is this one, and then through the first bead of the row that I just did. So I'm actually going to go straight up through 2 beads, just like that. So that when you finish that, that's what you look like. That's not what you look like. This is what your piece should look like. And it's a little almost triangular shape, and it looks pretty wonky, but no worries, we're going to fix that. Okay, so another row of herringbone, where again we're going to do an increase for this row. So I'm picking up 2 11s, come down through the very next bead on that row. Again, I'm not worried about the row before it, I'm just worried about this row. Now, for this increase, this is where I'm going to pick up the 2 15s. So I'm picking up my 2 15s, and I'm going to come right up through the top bead of the next stack. And I'm going to pull. And what that does is that pulls it together a little bit there. Pick up 2 size 11 seed beads. I'm going to come through the very top bead of the next stack. Just like that. Now I'm going to pick up 2 15s and I'm going to come through the top bead of the next stack. So see, here was my increase bead. So now I'm going to come right through the top bead of the next stack. And at this point, you have to be careful not to get your beads caught around each other. There we go. 2 11s. Come down through the top bead or the next bead here. Okay, just like that. And if one sits a little sideways like this one does, just straighten it up. And then finally, I'm going to pick up 2 11s. And I'm going to come to the last bead for this row, which is this one right here. And then to step up, I'm going to have to go through the first bead of this row that I just started. So actually, I'm going to go up through those top 2 beads. And I'm going to pull. And so now it pulls my stack together more. It's not as flat. It's going to pull it together. Okay, so now we're going to do one last row of herringbone, but we're going to modify this row a little bit. I'm going to pick up 2 11s, and I'm going to come down through the next 2 beads there next to my stack. Then I'm going to come through the 2 15s that I added in the previous round. And then up through 2 beads of the very next stack. I'm going to pick up 2 11s. I'm going to come down through 2 beads right next to where I'm coming out at. That'll give me another stack. I'm going to come through the 2 15s that I added in the previous round. Make sure not to get your thread caught on anything. To me, that's the hardest part. Number 1 is, having so little to hold on to, but number 2 is, keeping your thread not caught. Okay, now I'm going to come through the 2 beads there next to where I'm coming out. Pick up 2 11s, and I'm going to come down through the next 2 11s here. And then finally, I'm going to go through those last 2 15s. And then up through 3 beads. I'm going to go through the 2 that I would originally started at. and then through the very first bead of this first stack that I started with. So that now you have a elongated triangle, and if you look, and this is kind of how I keep up with my steps, you have your initial ring of 6, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 beads on each side of your stack here. Now, once you have can't get it out. Once you have one all the way around, this last stack here, you're going to come up, straight up through the 4 beads and then the bead here on your top stack, because you're actually done with the herringbone part, and now we're going to do the embellishment part. With the embellishment part, we're only going to do it on the top 6 beads here in your circle. And when you get it done, you can kind of press it out like that, and it'll be more of a circle. As you do the herringbone stitch, it kind of pushes it in a little bit. So I'm only going to work with these top 6 beads. I'm not worrying about any other bead. And what I'm doing is I'm coming out of the top of my first bead. I'm picking up 3 size 11 seed beads, and I'm going to come up through this same bead to make a circle. And your beads are going to kind of do just like they did here. They're going to go around the outside of the one bead. I'm going to come down through the very next bead in the circle. And I'm going to continue now picking up 3 seed beads. And I'm going to come down through that same bead I'm coming out of to make my circle. And then I'll come up through the next bead in the stack. What you're doing at this point is you are just adding, I call it, we're adding volume here to the top. So that way it won't be so skinny at the top of our little pumpkin topper. So that's all we're doing, is just adding some little volume up here. When I first modified and did the pattern, I didn't have that part up top, and it looked okay, but once I actually got the 4mm bicone put in there and put these little embellishments on, it looked a lot better, and I was a lot happier with the pattern. So again, each bead, I'm just picking up 3. I'm coming back through the bead to make the circle, and then coming through the next bead in my stack. So you will have an embellishment, a 3 bead embellishment for every bead here on the top. So you'll have 6 bead embellishment things. Okay, so now what you can do is you're actually done with the topper. I mean, that's it. It looks like a hot mess with this big here because these big beads are not really made to do what we're doing. But what you want to do now is I go ahead and I stitch to where I'm coming out between 2 beads, and I'm going to do a couple of half hitch knots. And to me, it's easiest to do your knots if you'll come to the very end of a herringbone stack and just stick it between the 2 beads. Leave yourself a little loop, stick your needle through the loop, and then when you pull, make sure that knot goes in between those 2 beads there. And I normally put a couple of little knots in. And then put enough knots to where you feel comfortable with it. And then go ahead and cut that thread off. And so what you'll have is you'll have something much smaller, and it'll look much more better and organized than this mass chaos that I have here. I mean, you see how much bigger it is. But what you do once you have this done is go ahead and thread on a head pin, your orange bead, your topper, and then a 4mm bicone, and make your loop, and you have a really, really cute festive pumpkin earring. And I know this is a big difference, but I just wanted to show you bigger so you'd have an easier way to see it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope that you really try these pumpkins, because the first one you make seems kind of crazy, but then after you make the first one and you kind of get the idea of the pattern, it doesn't take long to make a pair of these little pumpkin earrings. And I tell you, I came up with this pattern last year, and every single person in my family got a pair of these earrings. They're super, super cute. If you need some of these 12mm orange beads, they are for sale on our Etsy site, which again is located here at the bottom of your screen. You can go to our Etsy page and we have patterns for sale. We have those orange beads for sale. Anything that you need that we have done in the videos, they should be there. Now, everybody always asks, so I'll go ahead and tell you, the earrings that I have on are actually, I adapted these from the oval encased cabochon pattern on our website. This was originally a ring. I made it into earrings. My ring is the oval beaded ring that is a free video on our website. And my bracelet is a pattern by Kathy Lampoole, Lampoole. She is that bead lady from Canada, so you can get to her website and check out the pattern there. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure and go to our Facebook page if you're not a fan, and become a fan of our Facebook page. And, you know, if there's anything we can help you, please let us know. I hope you guys have a blessed day, and be sure and come back next week, because I'm going to teach you a really, really fun pair of festive Halloween earrings. So I hope you guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye.